Good afternoon, everybody. We have a panel of today. Welcome everyone to the webinar. The topic today we have is government initiatives for Indic language ecosystem. And we have been just taking a step in bolstering the digital economy of the country. DPIIT, in collaboration with MeitY, has organized this webinar just to apprise all the entrepreneurs about the government initiatives taken in strengthening of the ecosystem for the startups. We have with us esteemed professors of universities today, who will help us understand what is the landscape of Indic language and also help us understand the various initiatives that the government is taking to strengthen this ecosystem further. I would just like to take 2 minutes to introduce everyone who will be speaking with us today. Of course, we have Mr. Anil Agarwal, sir, joining us from DPIIT, who has been instrumental in piloting various reforms for startups, and he has been spearheading this particular initiative in DPIIT and Startup India. We have Ms. Simi Chaudhary. She serves as an economic advisor and group coordinator for language computing group at MeitY. She has been instrumental in Government of India's flagship initiative of Digital India, and she has the coordination division group. In the main speakers, we have Mr. Rajiv Sangal, who will be talking about Indic landscape opportunities and challenges, and also overview of Natural Language Translation Mission by MeitY. Mr. Rajiv Sangal is the founder head of language technologies research at IIIT Hyderabad. And he has been working in natural language processing for over the past 11 years. He has led a consortium of 11 institutions for building machine translation systems in 18 Indic language pairs. Then we have Professor Deepti Mishra Sharma, who will be taking us through the Indian language standards. Ms. Sharma is one of the leading research of Government of India project Bahubhasa, speech-to-speech mission translation for English to Indian languages. She has also coordinated the efforts of developing linguistic annotation standards for Indian language, which has resulted in development of standard tax sets for Indian languages. Her work has been instrumental. Then we have Dr. Ajay Kumar and Mr. Koretkar from CDAC Pune. Dr. Ajay, who will be taking us through the NPLT portal, which MeitY is planning to launch in the next few weeks. Dr. Ajay Kumar is a Senior Director in Applied Artificial Group and Graphic Intelligence-Based Script Technology Group, CDAC Pune. His research vision and contribution encompass many fields with various technical papers on speech technologies, search technologies, etc. Mr. Kuratkar he serves as a joint director in CDAC. He has over 19 years of experience. He has led several MeitY funded projects and has developed cloud-based localization project management systems and designs. Welcome to all the esteemed speakers. We hope to learn a lot through this webinar from all of you. Now, I would like to ask Mr. Anil Agarwal, sir, to just give a welcome address and to set a context to the webinar. Sir, please, if you could.
Very good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all my distinguished speaker colleagues on this webinar today, and all those who are joining us from far and wide, all the entrepreneurs out there in the startup ecosystem in the country. You know, this has been one of my very dear projects where, you know, we want to communicate with our citizens, our fellow citizens, in our own languages. And if we look at our country, we have only, you know, most of our work is done in English. Now, our best of the exams are done in English. Our entire higher education gets into in English. Engineering, medicine, arts, commerce, everything. Government of India works totally in English. Whole lot of state governments work in English, apart from their own languages, but many governments are working in English. Now, this poses a dichotomy in our country. You know, citizens of this country are not good at speaking English. There are only 10% of Indians who actually speak English. That's all. Only 10% of Indians. And 0.02% of Indians say that English is native to them. That is their mother tongue. So, why should we not have the advantage of technology to the wide, citizens of this country in their own language? Any content, let's say entertainment, you say trade, interaction, anything is done primarily in your own language first. Instinctive behavior is always in your own language. It is never in something, you think in your own mother tongue and then you speak out in English, or over a period of time then you start thinking in English and speaking it out. That's a different thing. But then it's a very, very difficult process for so many of us. I have myself been a victim of this entire process. I come from a very small town. I speak Hindi. And when I graduated from a Hindi medium school to an English medium engineering college, there was a huge transition issue. And then I had to spend a lot of my energies only learning the language and the same terminology that I was using in my language to get familiar with the same terminology in English language. Now, with this background, when we come to the penetration of internet in this country, internet has been developed internationally, so it's available in English broadly. But if you look at major companies, you take Microsoft, you take Google, you take Twitter, any other company, when they launch their products in Europe, they will launch for each country separately in their own language. If we look at our states, and the population which speaks a particular language is much bigger than any of these countries in Europe. But even then, why is it that these companies don't find it commercially viable to develop products in our language for our consumers in India? That is a gap that we would like to fill. Today, the spread of internet is now reaching tier 3, tier 4 cities. We are taking BharatNet to all the villages. Optical fiber we are taking to all the villages. Now, in a matter of time, in a matter of 2 years, solid Wi-Fi is going to be available in all villages across the country. Now, what happens? Would our citizens be able to consume all the content and everything that we pass on in English language? They will not be able to do that. The local trader does not understand English. He works in his own language. The citizen, he does not understand English. They work in their own language. So it is extremely critical for us that we develop technologies and we encourage our entrepreneurs, our startups who are working in our own languages, who are developing content, delivering content, information, entertainment, trading, social media, utility services. All these services, when we are providing in our own languages, how could we facilitate this entire process? I am asking all my colleagues who are experts in their own fields, from MeitY, from CDAC, from IIIT Hyderabad. What is it that we could do at a policy level or maybe at a support level to facilitate the startups who are developing apps which can work seamlessly in all kinds of mobile phones? They can work in all kinds of operating systems over desktop, and interoperability is there. What is it that we can do? We have done some analysis of gaps that are available here and there. Let's see what is it that needs to be done. I'm sure we will be joined by some startups here who will have their questions, and we will be answering those questions. I look forward to a very, very meaningful session. I look forward to learning a lot from all the experts that are there on this panel today. I look forward to interacting with some of the startups who are facing issues while they are developing and delivering content in Indian languages. And we look forward to everybody's cooperation for developing policies and systems and implementing them together so that we could solve this major problem. With these words, I welcome everyone to this webinar, and I hope everybody will have something to take out from this seminar today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Requesting Semi ma'am to talk about the initiatives a little bit, and then we can open the floor to the speakers as well.
Thank you, Neha. Good afternoon to everybody who's joined us here today for this webinar. And thank you, Anil sir, for setting the context in such a meaningful and comprehensive manner. In fact, you have really emphasized the requirement of going into our own language solutions, which is really the cry of the hour, if I may say so. And we all have seen the benefits of the Digital India program percolate downwards to the citizens, whether it is for ease of living or for ease of business or for bringing in a transparent governance, participative governance. So the umbrella program, which was launched by our Honorable Prime Minister in 2015, with the vision of bringing about a knowledge-based economy and a digitally empowered society, has really borne fruits very truly across the domain of initiatives of the government. And today, India is in a lift-off phase, in a sharply take-off phase of this digital transformation. And that is of creation of tremendous economic value. But while this is established, also gets established along with this is the need for ensuring inclusion of all citizens of the country in this growth trajectory, in this growth journey, in this transformation that we are undergoing in a very true sense. And that inclusion can only come about if we cover the citizens, if we are able to bring all citizens on board in their very native languages. And in fact, that should be our aspiration, that the vast knowledge that is available on the internet, the tremendous resource available on the internet today, should be available to each and every citizen of our country in their native language, in the language in which they can relate to the world and understand what's happening around them, both for the knowledge perspective as well as for cashing on the opportunities that flow out of those as well. And it is in this context that the Natural Language Translation Mission has been envisioned by the Ministry of Electronics and IT of the government, that is at setting up a Bahubhai next to every citizen for every purpose, so that the language barrier is broken, is overcome, and there can be a total amalgamation of the nation in spite of the diversity, that unity or that correlation of every citizen with the governance process of the country is absolutely flawlessly conducted. In this direction, we are anticipating, we are aspiring to set up an entire ecosystem, not just projects, not just programs, not just schemes as is the routine normally, but development of an ecosystem with a Team India approach, wherein the government, both central and state governments, the industry, the academia, the startups, the civil society, the citizens at large, all participate to strengthen this initiative with their innovations, with the continuing innovations, if I may say so, and designing indigenous solutions to our very specific problems that we have. India is very uniquely placed actually for with respect to designing of solutions, because if you look at the West, yes, they have the capability of designing the solutions, but they do not have the kind of social problems or specific problems for which those solutions can be really tested, put to use, and evolved. The China and other countries, or the East, so to say, has that similar set of problems as us, but the capability of developing the solutions varies. India is uniquely placed. It has both the capability to design the solutions as well as the problems to which those solutions can be put to use. So our societal issues can largely be solved by our own expertise getting harnessed for developing indigenous solutions to those problems. And it is in this direction that we look forward to involvement of our very innovative, very capable, and very efficient startups to join hands with the government. Whatever support that is required will be provided as per the procedures that is best allowed. And let's together uh, contribute towards creation of an Atmanirbhar Bharat vision of the Prime Minister, not just an Atmanirbhar Bharat, but an Atmanirbhar citizen of Atmanirbhar Bharatiya also, if I may term it so. And towards this end, all our very esteemed speakers who are with us today, and we are very fortunate to have them here on a single platform together. Thanks to DPIIT for organizing this. They will really enrich our vision on this. They will guide us how to take this forward while also making everyone aware of what is currently underway and how it can be taken forward. So it's a privilege to be on this platform with everyone here today. Again, as Anil sir said, I echo that expectations are. I also look forward to a lot of learning, and I also look forward to a lot of guidance and partnerships emerging from this session of today. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Simi ma'am. Thank you for your words. I will now open the floor to the speakers. Our first speaker today is Mr. Rajiv Sangal, who will be talking about the Indic landscape and overview of the natural language translation mission. So, sir, you can start right now. You can have your presentation open and start with it.
I'm sorry, you didn't hear me. Can you see my screen now? Yes.
So we're not able to see your screen right
Is
now.
it visible
Not
now?
yet.
Not yet.
Takes a few seconds, but not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, coming.
Is it visible now?
So we can see your screen now. You can
Just
start.
1 second. Okay. Yeah.
It was coming, I got it.
Yeah. It's visible now. Yeah. So we just heard, that
Yes, sir, you can start.
that in India, we are uniquely placed in terms of number of languages we use, and the variety and diversity we have in our country is just amazing. And we need to preserving that. We need to go forward, and this is where role of technology comes in. Technology can be used for bringing about unity in spite of diversity, or we use technology to flatten the diversity. And we will be loser in the second aspect if we do so. So keeping Indian languages and the uniqueness and the power that they have, the variety which is there, there was a language translation mission that was announced by the Prime Minister's office, and then later on it has been implemented through MeitY, through PSA, Principal Scientific Advisor, the Prime Minister's Council, and so on. So what is this language mission about, and what does it tell us? What opportunities does it open? And I'll be mentioning the opportunities particularly for startups. So I'll talk about why Indian languages and translation. I'll talk a little bit about technologies very briefly. And then more importantly, what is the status and readiness of the technologies? And what can be done for commercialization? And this is where a very important role of startups and other companies comes up. And so let us start looking at the issue. So Indian languages, earlier, whenever there was a discussion on Indian languages or use of technology, people considered how they would be used in offices and how they would be used in organizations. But today, what has happened is the computers or the smartphones have reached in the hands of common man. And that gives access to internet as well as all kinds of interesting and useful material to common people. And as was mentioned by Shri Anil Agarwal, 90% of Indians are not comfortable in English, and even the 10% who are comfortable, even there perhaps 90% again are more comfortable in their own languages. So this is the status. And now the devices have reached the hands of the common man. The second aspect is the internet content is largely in English today. And we need to make the content available in Indian languages, existing content, as well as create new content. So this is a situation where the need is staring us right in the face, and it is coming up in the form of demands that people are making regarding their languages and so on. So let me take the example of education. Importance of education has been realized all over the country, and this need for material being available is being felt more than ever before. Education has expanded, has reached sections which are not comfortable in English at all, and their children are entering higher education also. And higher education, including the IITs, the students who come in are not very proficient in English. I was director of IIT Varanasi, and my guess would be that about 40% students were not very comfortable with English, those who have entered the IITs. And if you look at the material or the books that are available in Indian languages, in higher education, they are largely missing. So now what should be done? Now at this point, online education has also come in, as we know, and it has been given an additional push by COVID-19. Something that I never imagined. In schools, the classes are running online, even in rural areas, even though connectivity is not always that great, but still that is the only medium available at this point. And therefore, even school education has suddenly shifted to online. Now, when we talk of lectures online, then we need speech-to-speech language translation. So it is not just text-to-text translation, but speech-to-speech translation. Electronic courseware with video lectures for higher education, India has been an early leader with very large amount of material, particularly in technical education, that is available and that is being viewed across the world. This is known by the name of NPTEL. And Swayam, the new platform which has come, on which now NPTEL lectures are also being hosted. So the users of NPTEL, even before COVID-19, was in the range of 25 lakhs to 1 crore. Ministry of Human Resource Development says that there are 25 lakh unique active users. And if only this content was available in Indian languages, the users would overnight grow to 1 crore. Within a matter of couple of weeks, this number would become 1 crore. And today with COVID-19, that number I know would be even higher. Now, Translate, there are also other interesting material. There are TED lectures on virtually all topics, all areas of knowledge in the world. They are hosted as TED lectures. They are all in English. So there is a need to translate this material. And as I was mentioning, school education has suddenly become online. So speech-to-speech language. So if this material, which is there in spoken form, could also be translated, now that would be a boon. And this language translation mission takes speech-to-speech translation as its goal. And of course, it includes text-to-text translation, as well as automatic speech recognition, etc. Now, the main difficulty, excuse me, hello, there is no difficulty. Okay, I was just checking whether there was a difficulty with my presentation. So I'll go on. So the main translation for education, now when people found out where the students are facing main difficulty in electronic courseware, whether NPTEL or SWAYAM, it is that they find it difficult to understand spoken English by the professor in the video. There is difficulty, although less difficulty with slides or displayed material, because they also look it up in the textbooks. But spoken lectures, they say, I can't understand what the professor is saying. So therefore, one immediate task that was selected for this language translation mission was to translate spoken English in all Indian languages, and to begin with, let's say about a dozen Indian languages. Now let us see what technologies are involved if you want to do this speech-to-speech translation. So let's go to language technologies. This is a pipeline I've drawn, very rough pipeline. And there are three major components. The speech input is there in the source language, let us say L1. And that is goes through automatic speech recognition to produce text in L1, the same source language. Then it goes through machine translation to produce text in the target language L2, which is then spoken out by the computers. Now there is technology available for each of these three major boxes. And the technology is at different levels of proficiency. ASR has reached a good level, I should say, and text-to-speech has reached even better level. But machine translation is still far away. So let us see what we can do, because there is no technology available for speech-to-speech translation at the moment. We take these three and break them up into more details, and let me look at the difficulty. The first part was the automatic speech recognition, and this software sort of became available as used for dictation. But dictation, as you know, produces text but uses vital information which is present in the spoken speech. Pauses, the emphasis that is made, the pitch changes that are there. So prosodic information is missing in this. And if we could transcribe it, yes, it would be useful. It would become subtitles along with the English text that is spoken out. And for a person who doesn't know English, let's say if he's a Hindi reader, then it will have to go through translation. And if you want to go from English to all Indian languages, all 22 Indian languages, then we could break it up into two parts. One going from English to any one Indian language. Example I've taken is Hindi. And then from that language to other 21 languages. And to begin with, let's say a dozen languages is what will be covered. So machine translation would take place. And finally, the translated text would be spoken out by the machine, keeping the original prosody which was there for English text. So that prosody will also have to be transferred. By prosody, I mean emphasis, speech changes, pauses, etc. So this is, we could take the existing technology and string it together, but let us see what is its status. This would not work very well if you put these together. So there would have to be human interventions in correcting the speech, then correcting the translation, whether going from English directly to the Indian language or Indian language and then Indian language to Indian language. The last part could be done largely automatically because text to speech is good, but there the issues about length and time stamping would have to be taken care of. Okay? And if you see there are difficulties, there is work, manual intervention would be there. And what we find is that when you take existing technology and just apply it, let's say to a lecture in higher education, it will have technical terminology, it is in a technical subject, and what happens is the performance of the system falls dramatically. So if you take Google speech recognition or Microsoft speech recognition, and you apply it to technical domain, let's say aerospace or mechanical engineering or civil engineering, performance drop is enormous because there are technical terms, and also these lectures are sort of spontaneous speech, so it is also conversational, and these systems don't always work very well. If you come to machine translation, one faces actually tremendous difficulty and domain terms. So first of all, the speech output does not produce any sentences, any punctuation marks. And machine translation requires sentence markers, full stop or question mark, to be able to work at all. So this is where the difficulty, so this is the starting point of the difficulty. So even if you put sentence markers, even then the quality of translation is not good enough. So this is a problem we face. And so what one could do is to enhance these technologies at each of these three boxes, keep putting the prosody information. Information that is thrown away in a dictation is very valuable and should be kept so that it can be used in a machine translation system. So P stands for prosody. So automatic speech recognition with prosody markup, and machine translation with prosody and discourse, not just sentence but paragraphs. And finally, the text-to-speech system also with prosody. So there is a case for enhancing each one of these three boxes. So on the other hand, the mission that has been launched will produce work, fundamental work also in these areas, but most importantly, produce systems that can become useful right away. So that just told you about the technology status. I'll say a few things more and what we need to do to make it ready. So as I was mentioning about translation, quality of translation is not publishable. It will need correction, enhancement, speech to text is a difficult area, particularly if you also want to handle prosody and mark it up. And text to speech, fortunately, is at an advanced stage. Output that it produces is very good. Now, when we want to, so other issue would be how to combine these technologies together, and how do you combine the new technologies that use domain terminology, discourse analysis, prosody, besides only the sentence analysis. So let me come now to the main part, which is the technology and commercialization. So as I was mentioning, translation, machine translation, text to text is not publishable quality, and speech to speech is also not so, and transcription, but human aided is one of. So the technology design that we have undertaken is keeping this in mind, that the technology should become usable in a matter of months, and I believe the technology is actually now ready for use immediately. It is already being used by some number of companies. But at a national scale, it can be launched, where the transcription as well as machine translation technology can be used. And there would be human editing, human intervention, post-editing of machine output, both at the speech recognition level as well as at machine translation level, remove errors, improve style, and improve readability. So one issue then, there is a shift. So on one hand, we would enhance the technology and we are working on it. On the other side, existing technology, how do we make it, put it out in such a form such that productivity of human translators or human post editors goes up? Because once that happens, it is ready for commercialization, and I believe we have already reached that point. So the technology that we have should also be customizable rapidly. One may want to change the domain from mechanical engineering, one may want to translate political science, or one may want to translate documents related to commerce or insurance. So it's rapidly customizable. And the cost of human post editing, so improving the productivity of the human translator. So I believe that in next 5 to 8 years, the productivity of the human translator will go up by a factor of 10. And right now, we have already reached that the human productivity has become twice. So if in 1 hour, a human translator could produce 1 page, they should be able to produce 2 pages. Now, this depends, of course, on the domain. The domain customization has to be done. And after that, the human productivity of the human translator or the post editor goes up. Okay. So output quality will also improve in future as technology improves, particularly in uniformity of terminology. Therefore, sometimes the translation gets done only by one person. So here, many people can work, and even though there are many translators, the terminology would be maintained, writing style would be, uniformity would be maintained. And if you are going from one language to many languages, now this is where really the technology will pay back. Because if one person in one language, if you produce a translation, machine will learn from that, will use that information to produce translation of higher quality in other languages. So these are all the plus points. Now, what is the role of startups and companies? So, of course, there could be service companies which provide translation as a service. That could be in fact the starting point or for some companies, and there are some translation agencies which are now shifting, which are learning how to use these tools and learning to use our technology which we have given them. This technology has been developed over the past several years with funding from Ministry of Electronics and IT by various academic institutions. And there have been early startups who have been working together with us. So now that technology can be transferred to agencies who are providing translation as a service. But now, as many new things are coming up, and India is a large country with many languages, with many translation agencies, different agencies specializing in different languages, there is a need to supply technology tools and engines to translators, publication industry, etc. That startups could also become co-developer of technology tools. So besides the core technology, many tools are needed, and those tools we believe would be developed by the startups to satisfy needs of different clients, different users, and for that support will be provided by academic institutions involved in this project, and of course also the government, MeitY, DPIIT, for example. There is a new element here in involving the startups. They could also become developers of the core technology if they wish. And even in the mission, special provision has been made for this, where startups can participate in contests, open national contests, in which they would prove themselves, and if they prove themselves, they would be helped in further enhancing, developing the core technology itself And this will be through, as I mentioned, open contests in a competitive mode. There is a fourth requirement.
Sir, just request you to summarize your presentation.
Yes.
And because you can move to the next speaker then.
Yeah. So in the creation, there's another area that is creation of language corpora. This is large amount of text as well as spoken corpus collections, and these will go into development of the technology further. Now, these will be facilitated through centers of excellence that have already been set up, actually being set up, but they have also started working with a small number of startups right away. So through these, the mechanisms are also available by which the startups will be facilitated for any one of these four, and also if they want to become a service provider of translation. There are other opportunities which I will skip. Say it's culture and tourism, interpretation of speech for tourists, governance, information dissemination, judiciary, traditional knowledge, education, learning in school. This point I had put in, 2 years back, and now it is back with a bang now with online education. So let me come now to the conclusions. So first of all, this is an unprecedented opportunity. There is an acute need, users are asking for it, and this demand is coming from ground up. Technology readiness level, we are almost there. Almost there means we have now entered the commercial space, and major push is being given by government as well as academic institutions. In this system, currently our country, a large number of startups have come up. They have become interested in, many of them are getting interested in language technology, and I hope more will enter language technology. And this is a rare combination which is occurring all together. So need to research in technology and do delivery of technology. So this is an entire ecosystem for Indian language, and that need has become so important. In the ecosystem, there is work on technology going on, further improvement, customization. It's a paying proposition today, this use of this technology. Already there are, large users who have come forward for translation of both spoken as well as text material. We are also partnering in the mission, partnering with state governments, because language specific missions will come from each state. And to catalyze the need and the demand, government is actively involved. For example, in MHRD, the Ministry of Education now, the online content, they are already asked for translation of large amount of online content, virtually tens of thousands of hours of material, for which there are 25 lakh to 1 crore users. There are 25 lakh active users today who are looking at that content. So on one hand, there are users, on the other hand, there are suppliers of information in English, which can be now converted. And the government itself, through the ministries, have come forward to catalyze the demand because it's a real need they are feeling. And lastly, I won't talk much about it, create original Indian language content, either also through translation, but also original Indian language content. This can be done through crowdsourcing. So the opportunities are really immense. The ecosystem is falling into place, and the early people who enter this ecosystem are the ones who will, carry the worm, who will get the most benefit. And this whole mission has been proposed by the Prime Minister's Council, and which is being implemented by Principal Scientific Advisor to Prime Minister, to the government, to Ministry of Electronics and IT. And we look forward to a new situation where Indian language technology will be available to all and one in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your insights. Thanks for introducing us to the mission and also sort of taking us through what the potential applications could be. Now, I would like to welcome Professor Deepti, who will be talking about Indian language standards. and how startups can leverage all the standards which are there currently. Ma'am, you can just pull up your presentation.
Yes.
And
So
ma'am,
thank you, Neha. Thank you, Neha. Thank you, DPIIT, for giving me this opportunity. I'll just share my screen and share the presentation. Just
sure, ma'am.
confirm.
Ma'am, I'll just request you to stick to the 20 minutes presentation time.
I'll try, and I hope I can do it even faster.
Sure, ma'am. Opening the stage to you.
Okay. Uh, so is my presentation visible now? Is it visible? Neha, can you confirm?
Ma'am, your screen is visible, not the presentation. If you
Oh,
just open
okay.
the presentation.
No, no, the presentation is open. I think I have to share. Yeah.
It's open, ma'am. You
Yeah.
can go ahead.
I'll just make it bigger. Okay, so sorry. Yeah. So good afternoon, all, and I'll share a few pieces of information about Indian language standards. But before I do that, the outline is basically a couple for 3-4 minutes or 5 minutes on background, then the standards for script, speech, text, etc. for Indian languages. So subsequently, I'm not going to use the word Indian language. That is just situated in the entire thing is on that. So please read it as Indian language standards. So if we look at human language processing, there are three aspects that one kind of has to deal with: script, text processing, and speech processing. Now, when it comes to script, you have issues with input and display, and that's where standards are needed. Okay. With speech, you have automatic speech recognition and text to speech processing. So here again, how does one deal with the data and the processing methods? When it comes to text, there are three things. I have included machine translation here because it's a huge application of natural language processing. But what one has to deal with is natural language understanding and natural language generations. If one reads it differently, then it's understanding and speaking. These are the two parts as humans that we engage in while using natural language. And technology tries to address these two. Now let's look at Indian language space, or the space for Indian language technology in India. Our total population is huge, we all know. 22 scheduled languages, 99 non-scheduled languages. That is 121. Then there are 270 mother tongues. Now these 121 do not include English. This 270 does. And this 270 are of the speakers which have more than 10,000 speakers. Okay. And what 2011 Census of India says, all these figures are from there, that 96.71% of Indians use at least one of the scheduled languages. So if one covers these 22 languages, outreach to Indians is already there in terms of technology. These are the 22 languages, and what we have are the technologies when it comes to language technology. ASRTTS, I talked about, machine translation, question and answering, dialogue systems, etc. I mean, there are many more, but these cover chatbots and other kind of apps that people want to develop can come from one of these, largely. The domains which are where this technology can play a critical role, and in fact, right now the need is really felt, are education is a big sector, healthcare is another big sector in India, and I missed judiciary. Dr. Sangal mentioned that's another major domain where actually this technology can play a very critical role. Agriculture, tourism, and of course there are many other. By the way, English is not amongst the scheduled languages. So English is outside these 22 languages. And as Mr. Agarwal mentioned, English is only 10 to 12% of Indians are comfortable in English. I mean, the figures, statistics say only that many know. So comfortable, those in the number of Indians who are comfortable may be still fewer, but let us say that it is 10 to 12%. Even then, a large number of Indians do not know English. So the technology, if we want to take the technology to the last Indian, it has to be done in an Indian language. Why standards? Now, when one talks of standards, why can't we do our own things in our own way? Of course, I'm sure most of you who are already trying to deal with some of these technologies would understand that standards play a critical role. Interoperability, if the modules, small tools, if we want them to interact with each other, there have to be some standards which are followed, and that's why these are the best practices in the field. So 22 languages we talked about. Another complexity is 12 scripts. Okay, so that means we have to deal with, so the space that is available, I wanted to say that the space that is available for working in language technology in India is very, very large. And TDIL has been working in this direction. TDIL under MeitY, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, has been working and formed an apex body which has been working towards developing and maintaining standards for Indian language technologies, and so that whatever is developed there can work towards reducing language barrier. Now, when one talks of standards, standards always have an official or formal route. So there are bodies which recognize and accept, and that's when a proposal becomes a standard to be used. So these are some international and national standards. Bodies, and Bureau of Indian Standard, in fact, has a language technology wing which is working towards developing standards for Indian language technology needs. Now, if we go to script, standards for script, most of my presentation is actually information based, of course, just to share what all is available. So all 12 Indian scripts, these are the 12 Indian scripts, are represented in Unicode. So now the representation and processing of Indian scripts is not an issue. It's Unicode and available, and most of the work actually is done using Unicode. The input, for input you need keyboards. So for keyboards also, standards have been developed. BIS has published in 2016 and enhanced in script keyboard layouts, and character code sets for Indian languages and their scripts are also specified, and it covers charts, and 11 Indian scripts and 21 official languages are covered here. All this work has been going on. CDAC Pune, the GIST unit, has been playing a very, very important role there in collaboration with TDIL. They are the ones who are working. So one can contact them or reach out to them. Here are the URLs. Then for fonts also, now display is another issue. So for fonts also, some standards have been developed, and many digital fonts for Indian languages. Currently, they're typically limited to. So this was very interesting because initially many of us, when we started working, and you would hardly find any digitized data in Indian languages. And if you were able to access it, if you were fortunate enough to be able to access it, it would be in a font or in such that you would find it difficult to actually use it because they were not even digitized. They would be in glyphs. So in 90s, this work went on. A lot of people in several languages developed, but they were respective state languages, and proprietary were there which prevented people to use it, and it was very difficult to use something from one place to the and take it and use it elsewhere. Then CDAC again took the lead and evolved the character, slice, glyph coding standards to ensure good appearance and aesthetics. I mean, these are some of the things that matter with fonts. You want whatever you have written to look good. So this work also is now available. So SFOC coding has wider acceptance, and web publishing is another area where this is now gaining popularity. Then another very interesting thing that happens, of course, not everybody follows standards, but if we want to render Indian languages in Roman, then transliteration, and also transliteration going from one script to another. That's another important area. And for this also standards were developed. I mean, Unicode standards were developed. And the difference between translation and transliteration is that if you take Hindi word hum and translate it, it becomes we, but otherwise only the script changes in transliteration, whereas in translation, the language changes. So now transliteration itself is not a very trivial task, because how do you render Hindi, something written in Devanagari in Roman, that it still remains true to its original form. So that also is a challenging task, and there also, I mean, what is important is that whatever one develops, these standards should be complete, predictable, pronounceable, and reversible, as I said. So all these are some important principles which were followed, and now these are also available. Again, CDAC and TDIL have worked on it. The next part is about speech processing. Here again, some standards are available, some international standards are there, and so speech synthesis markup language, and speech recognition grammar specification, pronunciation lexicon. This makes a very important component. So when we are dealing with language technology, it's not just computing, it's a lot of data or language resources which are needed. And it's always very important to have them available in a standard format, and also with standard markups. So, or in any standard representation. So these are also pronunciation lexicon make a critical component of speech processing. And then, of course, there are also gap analysis and things available. Because we are short of time, I will not get into the details of these specific standards. So I'll just skip them and come to language processing standards for text. Now, text itself is huge. What one needs here is, of course, representation, as I said. Then for tools, because if I want to develop any small product using some tools, there are, in text processing, a lot of small components are there, or modules are there. And these modules need to talk to each other, interact with each other. One should also be able to use one from one to the other. So for tools also, input-output standards are needed. And then corpora, as I said, data makes a lot of a very important component. So for corpora, also as annotation or standards are required, how to mark the metadata and whatever linguistic information. Normally in text processing, there are annotated corpora which have various kinds of linguistic information. So one needs to come up with standard label set which can be used. And here, important part is that all this should be such that you can also use it for at the international level. I mean, the international community should also, it should be easily understandable by people working in the field, whether in India or abroad. So data representation. One most popular standard is CONAL. It is a format which is available for various kinds of linguistic information, as I said, and a lot of tools actually use this format for processing. So POS tagging, chunking, at various levels of understanding or natural language understanding tools. Components use this Conal. It's a very popular standard and very simple. It has different columns, and each column is for a feature. So for training models also, if your data is represented this way, you can extract features for setting your features for training or your features for rules or whatever one wants to do. So this is how it can be represented. Another standard that was developed during the development of Indian language to Indian language machine translation system that Simi mentioned. This was again a major project funded by MeitY, where 12 institutes were involved and 9 language pairs and 18 systems were developed. So during the process of such a large project, it was important, and so many languages and so many institutes, it was important that we come up with proper standards to make all the modules across groups work well and seamlessly. So for this, one standard format, SSF, was arrived at, and this is, so I see, this is how it looks. It's very similar to Conal, but it has only 4 columns. And the advantage that we see here, so XML is another representation that is used for processing. However, the thing is, in XML, reading by human beings becomes very difficult. And sometimes for debugging and other reasons, one wants to read. So with SSF now, that was one major thing that was kept in mind, and therefore it's a very legible format and also easy to manipulate, and of course one can store input. So this then becomes the input and output for different modules where they can interact with each other. After that, after representation, we also have standards which are for word processing or sentence processing. And when one is dealing with text, it's not just word or sentence. One has to think in terms of entire discourse or entire text. So what kind of standards are available there? At word level, there are standards standards are available, and for some languages, the data also is available. So, so tree bank is one thing where some of these things have been standardized and are being used. For counter and tokenization, how does one token? I mean, what is the notion of token itself is an issue. Then segmentation, and many of the Indian languages are very rich in morphology. So word segmentation itself is an issue. So for that, then morphological attributes, then part of speech tagging. Named entity recognition is a very major module or a component for many NLP applications. And for this also, some standards were arrived at and they are available. AUKBC Chennai has it, and Conal standards are also being used. Then in Indian languages, another thing that we used, of course, multi-word expressions is an issue for all languages, and in NLP, it's one of the tough problems. However, in Indian languages, it becomes all the more because our verbs are very often not just one word. They are multiple words together. So for these also, some standards are needed, how to, when to identify them, to mark them, and to use them in compute. At the sentence level, one talks of shallow parsers, where you get some kind of a parsed level of an input sentence, and these are available. And for them also, we are using SSF standards for that, and for some languages they are available. Then the other level of parsing is deep parsing, and dependency analysis is becoming most popular internationally. There is this universal dependency grammar or universal dependency parsers, which are available for several languages. The tree banks are available, and the tags are available, standard tags. So most languages, this is being used. In India, we have followed another scheme, which is called Paninian. We have Panini in India back from the 500 BC. So his grammar is very, very lucid, and we have been following that. So for that also, labels are available. And also converters are available from one to the other. So many of these things are there. Then another way of representing a sentence is phrase structure. For is largely, for Indian languages, things have not been worked out so well, but the international standard for this is Stanford. Then there are other tasks which are very popular these days, and sentiment annotation standards are same as SEM-EVAL, which is international standard. I mean, they work for Indian languages as well. These days, one very popular thing is hate speech. So for annotating hate speech, if you want to train your corpus and model and have data, then for Indian languages also this can be used. This is 2019 HAZOC standards which are being used. And emotion detection I am not aware of. I just listed it because this needs to be worked out. There are standards available. There are standard emotion labels which people use. Now sentence, then we go to discourse level. And
ma'am, can you just summarize your presentation now?
2 minutes. Okay, Neha, just 2 minutes. So at the discourse level, if you take the entire thing, then there are standards for Hindi. Some corpus is available, and for Urdu, smaller in size. For Hindi, all right, not very large, but available. And for this, again, pen discourse standards have been used for Hindi also. Another important component at discourse level is co-reference or anaphora. And for resolving this, there are, some methods and annotation labels which are available. Here is one very interesting thing. Dr. Sangal talked of speech-to-speech machine translation. And when you get an ASR output, then it has a lot of disfluencies and a lot of pet phrases, these kind of things. So you will see a very cluttered screen here, because this clutter includes a lot of things which a machine translation system may not be able to handle, because well-composed text doesn't have these kind of things. So one needs to come up and think of in terms of, we haven't found much internationally. One has to find right ways of identifying and labeling them. In all these, the labels are important. And then, of course, dealing with it. The last, I'll take 1 minute more, Neha. The last part is you cannot talk of India and not talk of code mixed data, because that's what everybody has to deal with. That's how we speak, and that is what is available on social media. So for this, there are 3-4 things which are important. What one has to do here is, of course, deal with the words coming from, or segments coming from different languages. So identify them. So language identification, for these standard methods are available, and standard labels are available. And normalization, transliteration, and identifying which is the main language, and CMI, these kind of things, index, etc. These are available. There are shared tasks which have been conducted earlier. FIRE, ICON, SEM-EVAL, these are the places where shared tasks are conducted, and one finds standard data sets. This slide I got from Amitabh Das. This is some kind of code mixed corpus that Microsoft in Research India is trying to come up with. And that's it. That's where I end. And I would like to thank my student Vandan. I'd like to thank Dr. Sangal and all my colleagues and students who have been, who I have learned from. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for that very informative presentation on standards. That's one of the biggest issues that startups are facing in Indic landscape. So I'm
So,
sure and I hope this helped.
most welcome. This was a very quick summary. So I think more details for each of them can be taken up later and separately.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, you can stop sharing your screen now.
Yeah.
And can I request Dr. Ajay Kumar and Mr. Vinay Kodekar to now talk about introduction to the NPLT platform, something MeitY has been working on for a while. So it'll be good to, sir, shed light on it. You can open your presentation, and I would request you to keep it for 20 minutes. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Neha. And I would like to thanks to other parties, say, Neha Agrawal ji, Changal Saab, Smi Madam, and Dipti ji. Uh, we would like to focus on the work as well as some of the say things in the NPLT portals. What is the say agenda for the today? Initially, I would like to inform that, like Anil sir is saying, that he has worked, he has studied in Hindi medium and Hindi medium to English. Same way, I have also done from Hindi to English. Most of us who are studied in the state boards, definitely they have gone from state level language to English. So they have faced difficulties when they have moved up in the higher educations also. So definitely this language barrier, what has been mentioned by different speakers, is most challenging. And CDEC is working in the say NLP or Indian languages since long, and is the pioneer in Indian language computing. And we are working more than 3 decades now in this area. So we will now go directly to the presentations and move forward. Yeah, go ahead, please. So just a quick 2 or 3 slides about what CDEX is. As most of us we are knowing, but some of the startup watching this video might attending this seminar might not be aware of. So CDEC is a scientific society under Ministry of IT. We have we are established in 1998. It's established across 11 locations across India, and we have something around 2,750 plus professionals across India. Next. So if you can, I'm not going to each and everything. So you can see the third point. Language technology is one of the key thematic area of CDEC. There are different areas: HPC, quantum computing, language computing, and the language computing is the major thrust area of CDEC. Next. So in language computing, CDEC is working in the different areas. All the say we can say all the areas of the NLP, whether it is a machine translation, whether it is a IR, whether it is speech, or whether it is a spell checker, all the components which is required to make those systems functional, all the sub-components we are working on. Whether it is a NER, like Madam has mentioned, transliterations, parcels, and these are the solutions which is deployed across India by some or the many of the say in ministries, departments, or private. They are using our solutions. I would like to say. Next. So existing initiatives, we are working in all the 22 languages. We are working closely with the TDIL, and we have worked say from last say more than 20 years or so with TDIL, wherein the TDIL efforts in taking the Indian languages in the forefront is now we can say is bringing the fruits to the public, wherein that initially when if we go back, then there is no Unicode, then everybody is working on the two type fonts and proprietary things also. But nowadays everybody is working on the open source. That is the initiative, the MeitY standardization in the say font language, whether it is a speech you can say or say text. All these efforts is focused by MeitY through their TDL group. So these are the efforts which say TDIL has done, and CDEC has been working hands in hand with the TDIL, maybe the ministry. So if you can see user-friendly free software tools, CDEC has delivered free software tools, CDs, in all the 22 languages, which is now available on the websites also. On the LDCIL website, it is available. One can download those softwares. Next. So this is the software CD which has been say delivered across almost 4 or 5 years. We have delivered these CDs to all the public. We can say free of the cost, sponsored by the MeitY to all the public on their request. Next. Okay.
22 languages.
These are the 22 languages CDs which have been displayed now. Thanks. So now we can say what is the existing initiatives under the TDI. So we can say there are around 8 to 10 years back, MeitY TDL consider that these are the efforts which are going in a discrete manner in different institutions, different levels. They should work on a single platform and work in on the consortia mode. So they have formed, TDL formed different consortia working in the different areas, like they formed, say, 2 or 3 consortia in the machines translation, one in the speech, one in the OCRs, one in the handheld devices, like that. So those efforts which has been, work now have been consolidated, has been put on the TDL websites for the downloadable. These softwares, tools, technologies which has been developed by the different institutions working together over the past few years has now been freely distributable to the R&D institutions initially. Now, which are say available on the TDR-DC websites, one can download. But now, recently, the ministry has decided that these tools and technology which is available to the say R&D institutions and academics and other non-profitable companies can be available to the startups, or can be sold with some monetary purpose. So now this all the plethora of the work which has been done so far by these research institutions, by CDAC under the aegis of the ministry, can now be put, now is available to the startup for their use in their application, in their systems. Here now today we are going to tell about the NPLT platform majorly, where one can use, when one can download, how they can download, what are the things available. So we are focusing them. But here again we are giving a brief overview. However, we are planning to have number of seminars, workshops in due course of time, where one can have a deep dive into the systems. Like if we can say what is the phone, general public awareness, we are having general awareness seminars where one can have that how the phones are. But if then we will focus how the phones are created. So there will be the one can, if those startups who are interested into deep dive into some formations or some development of some tools, technologies, they can work. Even in CDAC, also if some startups wants to work with CDAC or develop some of the tools and technologies along with CDAC, so CDAC is also ready to help them out in that way also. Even CDAC is putting some of the challenge round also. We are planning to come up with some challenge rounds, some competitions in due course of time, which will be available. So I will be interested if startups who are seeing this seminar, or if they can be instrumental to others, then this will be definitely a step forward. And apart from that, like Sangal Saab has said, as Madam has said, these systems requires a use corpus to be built. Whether it is a speech, whether it is a text, or whether it is a images, to develop any system. So CDAC is also working under TDIL some of the projects where we are looking for startup translation agencies who are working in these areas. So we have also floated some of the tenders, some of the RFPs under which startups or translation agencies or agencies working in these areas can come forward and participate. So some RFPs are already floated from CDAC side. Some RFP will be floated in due course of time. Apart from that, also agency who are working, who wants to this area, can participate, can login and see and then work. And CDEC, I will say strongly here that CDEC is ready to work with the startups for all these kind of work what we have listed down. Now I will tell Vanitya to tell more about say TDILDC website and the NPLT portal.
Thank you, sir. So as you can see on the screen, TDILDC is short form for the TDIL data center. It is a virtual data center, and all the outcomes of the various research organizations have been hosted here. Of course, some languages you will find that there are more resources. Some languages are under-resourced. It basically depends on when a particular language was included in the schedule, as well as other factors like complexities. So there is image processing things involved in terms of OCRs. There is machine translation involved. There is speech recognition and text-to-speech also involved. So the focus of TDILDC was to collate all the resources, and even today all the things are available for researchers, for students to download and to take the research areas forward. Next. So now I'll come to the NPLT, which is the National Platform for Language Technology. So the various mechanisms which the ministry has used for funding the development, herein we are giving those resources to various kinds of users, including startups, including commercial organizations. Next. So in terms of the basic features, so it is basically a one-stop shop. You will have research outcomes for download. If there are other agencies in the government or otherwise who have developed linguistic resources, such as CIIL Mysore, so those are also linked from this. The tools are available for linguistic use as well as used by the industry. Next. So this tool basically implements a linguistic sharing, resource sharing policy for startup and industry. So not just startups, the MSMEs, the MNCs, any other organizations will be able to search, they'll be able to register, they'll be able to download as well as upload their linguistic resources. Next. So we'll come to the exact pricing policies, but basically we are trying to serve as an online marketplace for all that the government bodies have made. Plus, Sangal sir was talking about the National Language Translation Mission. So there will be more resources that get made for corpus, for tools, for code. So all that will also be made available on the NPLT in due course of time. Next. So this is the pricing policy that has been approved. So for Indian academic researchers, the resources are available for free. They were anyways available for free from TDIL DC portal. Now we are offering for startups as well free. So you can register on nplt.in and you can download the resources for free if you're a startup. For MSMEs, it is at 10% of the creation cost. For international academic researchers, it is 10% of creation cost, and commercial companies as well as foreign entities, it is at 50% of creation cost. Next. So when you're registering, you have an option of registering as an individual user, an academic researcher, a startup, an MSME, an international researcher, or a foreign entity. So currently, the portal is live for the academics as well as the startups, and this is the process that we are currently following to identify the users. So, yeah. So typically, if most of the listeners here are startups, then we do require your email. We do require your mobile number to be verified. We do require your PAN numbers, which is validated through the NSDL API, and the DIPP number, which is available on the Startup India portal. Of course, this is the current process. As you can see, the link is nplt.in/demo. As and when the things crystallize, these might change a little bit. Next. So currently, this is the count of resources and the nature of resources that we have onboarded on the NPLT. Some of the resources, as I mentioned, CIL, Mysore, and JNU. So they are having separate repositories. So we just link to them. Plus, there is a community profile. I'll come to that in a minute. Next. Next, so we just go through some of the screenshots of the portal. So after you log in, after you create a login, this is the kind of dashboard that you see, which has your order history, it has the product ratings, and many more things. Next. You can search for the resources. So an example is of an Assamese WordNet or Hindi OCR. So you can search for that, and you can add it to your cart. And based on your user type, automatically the cart will get updated. So this is the dashboards that are available, the statistical ones. Next. Apart from this, the earlier deliverables of CDAC, that is in terms of the enhanced inscript keyboard, which was being mentioned as a standard. So the tool for JavaScript typing is made available from the portal, as well as the APKs, as well as the transliteration typing. So transliteration typing is not a standard, but it is usually preferred by your urban users, while your rural users tend to use the enhanced inscript keyboard. Next. As Ajay sir was mentioning, we have the localization portal, localization.gov.in. So here's a screenshot of Digital India when it went live with 10 odd languages. So this is available as a service, and we are also looking at startups and organizations who are willing to participate in taking this forward. Next. So from the NPLT, what are the kind of things that you can do? So typically, as you can see, that there are various kind of resources. There are some things which are free open source. There are some things which are very high-end NLP things. So we take an example as a case 1.1, where somebody has a portal and or a mobile app, and you want to use a text to speech as a service. So the resources are available, or they will be made available as and when the NLTM matures, and you can run a demo on the NPLT as well as request the service. The second kind of user or second kind of a startup is somebody who has NLP knowledge, somebody who has resources who can update a particular resource, be it speech data, or he can tune a particular text to speech or a speech reco engine. Those are just examples. So to further the accuracy. Next. So for the startups, we have a section called as a startup wall. So where you can have your company details listed out. There is also provision for a mentor wall. So all the research institutes that were being mentioned, like the various IITs, the IISCs, the various centers for CDAC. The areas of expertise of those centers are with various professors. So they will be available to you as mentors. Next. So basically, just to summarize, the community thing we are looking at is that we give free access to the tools. We have the mentor and the technical guides to help you. And then we ensure that the community of the startups and the Indian language developers stay together and engage more in things like making standards and all that. So what is our role? So the research consortia outcomes, they will go through the COEE, and there might be some performance tunings, and we will make it available as APIs, web services, or downloadable products. The feedback, of course, as well as data gets pumped back into the research consortia to ensure that the work goes from the lab to the land. Next. So as Ajay was saying, that we are looking for a help to take the resources. We encourage you to take the resources, as especially as startups, from the NPLT. You can value add and update the functionality. computationally or linguistically. You can also take tools and execute projects, especially state government projects, as well as we are looking for people who will be willing to undertake translations in all 22 languages. Again, because there is an importance of the man in the loop. Next. So if you are a translation agency startup, we'll be having a separate webinar on this. But the framework from localization.gov.in is called Go Translate, and this framework is being offered to you to undertake localization in all 22 languages. So machine translation will be given to you as an assistance for the translators, and the translators can do the post editing correct, and while retaining the user look and feel, localize various websites and mobile apps and things like that. Next. So the upcoming webinars, we have one on the fonts and keyboards, which are the basic resources. Then the localization of websites and tools from localization.gov.in that I was just mentioning. We are also the W3C India office. So the web standards and ecosystems, how the startups can participate in that. We'll be having a session on that, and the internationalized domain names. So it is very much possible today to have your domain name www in local language, as well as an email address in local languages. So we'll be having those upcoming sessions. Next. While using the NPLT portal, there's a toll-free number, and that's the email address and the postal address of the HOD TDIL. Next. That's the team address and the HOD email address for further information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajay. Thank you so much, Mr. Karedkar. Thank you to all the speakers for your valuable insights on the topic. We've had some audience questions, which I would like to pose to the speakers related to the topic. The first question that we have is for Dr. Ajay and Karedkar, sir. The question goes, how can the government labs institutes help language startups to increase the pace of the startups? And how the government can help in sort of increasing the pace of the entire development of the sector?
Yeah, we basically like it has been asked how CDEC can help or institution can help. Then definitely there are few components which can be say either offloaded to the startup or who are working in these areas. If they can tie up with the CDEC or any institutes like working in the TDL on the GOVASA project, then they will be given that some of the work which has been offloaded to these institutions to those startup or agencies. That is the one way of engagement. Otherwise, other thing is that if they have some expertise in developing some of the tools, like for example NER, then they can come forward and then say the NER which they are having is good, or they can collaborate with any of the agencies or institutions, CDEC, whether it is DPIIT Hyderabad or any other institutions working on those projects under TDI. They can come forward and then say, and they can show their willingness to work on those tools and technologies.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the answer. Next question is for Mr. Rajiv Sanghal. So, which are the existing technologies for text prediction and grammar corrections in Indic scripts? And where can we find language models and raw data to train our language models for deep learning? If you have any insights on that. And the other speakers can also contribute to the answers as well.
So I'll come first to raw data. There is a large amount of raw data that is available in several Indian languages, maybe 9 Indian languages for sure, and maybe also more than that. They are available from Ministry of Electronics and IT. See, I had mentioned about TDIL data center. So the work which was done, data which was collected, has been put by academic institutions as well as other R&D institutions. They have all been put there. They are at one place, and one can go and browse and see what data would be useful. Now, besides raw data, there is also annotated data. So data in which markup has been done regarding part of speech, regarding chunking, and frequently used words, stop words, etc. So first of all, that data is available, and more data. This language translation mission aims to increase the raw data by a factor of, I would say, 100 times. So that data will start getting released as it gets collected. So that will be available on the national portal platform for language technology. So TDIL data center will become part of the national platform for language technology, so one can get the data from there. Regarding grammar correction as a tool, I know that it is available for some languages, and some commercial companies are also offering it. Offhand, I do not know their names and addresses. However, if centers of excellence have been established, they have, sometimes they have this kind of information also, so they can make it available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your answer. Next question is for Deepti, ma'am. Ma'am, given most of the edtech companies and in fact even media companies have content in English as well as local languages, what kind of policy changes are being planned to encourage development of the same content in regional languages? And what kind of initiatives are being planned by the government for this? Ma'am, your mic is muted. If you could just unmute and speak.
Yeah, sorry. So one major initiative that earlier MHRD and now Ministry of Education took up a few years back, but now they're really emphasizing and working on it hard, is getting most of this educational material available as video lectures for different levels, starting from school all the way to engineering and university level. Actually, there are a lot of MOOC lectures already available, and they are being translated. And that is a speech to at least text with subtitles, so that will be made available. And some of the institutes and organizations are involved. And actually, that's a platform where many of the startups can play a role, because to speed up, to make it faster, to get the material faster in the field, the technology as it is can be used and then enhanced, and the translation can happen. So that is one major initiative that I know of, and most of these things will have to come through translation. Unfortunately, a lot of material of quality is available in English on the web. Indian language content is available, but as everybody knows, it's much less. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Thank you so much. Last question that we have is again for Dr. Rajay and Mr. Kurikar. So, because we spoke a lot about NPLT platform also today, the question relates to that itself. There will data sets curated and created by public funded education institutes, for example, IITs. Will these data sets also be made available to Indian startups in some way or the other?
Can you repeat?
So the question is, will data sets? Yes, sir. So data sets
Can
created
you
by
repeat?
public. So the data sets created and curated by publicly funded education institutes, for example, IIT, will these data sets also be made available to Indian startups?
Yeah, basically, at present, what are the data sets which is created under the funded from the MeitY projects will be available on the NPLT portal. However, if MeitY or wishes and the institutions like IIT or say CIL Mysore or some other institutions are willing to made available their data sets and info on the NPLT portals, then that can also be seen. Like Vanity has in his presentation mentioned that there will be outlinks on the portal for the data sets which is available across, like CIL Mysore, they have data sets. So there will be outlinks. So one can click on the outlinks and then one can go reach to the CLMS sites, and then he can or she can download those information from there. So definitely, NPLT portal can be a single say one single platform to the all the startups or any other persons, if those data sets will be made available by those institutions, agencies on the NPLT portals.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your insights. Thank you to all the speakers for answering the questions, the audience questions. I would like to now request Mr. Anil Agarwal, sir, to close the session. And thank you to all the speakers once again for the insightful session and the information that I've gotten through you. Thank you so much. Sir, do you have some closing remarks?
Yes, I think this has been one of a very insightful session where we had three eminent scholars. They've given their years of experience into working into this field, and those presentations I found it really difficult to absorb, because this is something where if I have to understand what Dr. Rajiv said in 20 minutes, probably I'll have to spend 20 hours looking into how each and everything can be understood. And similarly, what Dr. DP, her presentation, I would like to understand each and every sentence, each and every bullet, but I know it takes a lot of time. Thank you so much. And Dr. Ajay Kumar, I could not unfortunately see your presentation because of some other engagement, but I'm sure the kind of work that all of you have done has empowered so many millions of Indians, and I believe that we need to carry this forward. We need to open up as much as we can, like data sets. I heard there are questions about data sets being available with public funded institutions, and they are they are needed by the startups. Actually, we need to build collaborative platforms where startups will give you a lot of data, and then you can actually build up it with those startups. So what we probably now need to do is, all these institutions which are doing a lot of research in these areas need to collaborate proactively with the startups who are working in these fields, and each both of you will gain from interaction from each other and all that. And we are positively going to take many of these questions are indicators for the desires that the startups have. We are going to take each of these questions very seriously, and see if we could actually create a policy where all these data sets have to be shared in a public domain on a platform that Dr. Ajay Kumar just said. Similarly, there are standards about Unicode standard is fine, but about the display standards, fonts, and other standards that you've said, we've seen that some of these standards are voluntary today. Now, can we make it mandatory for all the companies to follow those standards? I want to leave all of you with this thought. Like, standards are made because of research. Standards are made because of whole lot of technological advances that are done by the private sector. But then most of these standards are adopted by governments and made voluntary. Is it a time now for us to make some of these standards compulsory for all the players in the field to be followed, so that there is a seamless integration of information processing in all these languages? Is that desirable? So I'm leaving you with these thoughts, and I hope, apart from this, a number of other suggestions that have come in today, we will positively working at this in coordination with the Ministry of Information Technology, and we hope to be able to be of little more support to all those who are working out there in the field in developing language standards and language processing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.